after stopping to help what appeared to be an abandoned lion cub on a desolate African road. Wildlife photographer Marcus Chen found himself surrounded by an entire pride of lions in the dead of night. And what happened next would forever change how we understand the bonds between humans and nature's most fearsome predators. Just moments before, Marcus had been driving alone through Tanzania's remote Ruaha National Park, his camera equipment rattling in the back seat as his Land Rover navigated the treacherous dirt road. The golden hour was fading, painting the savanna in deep amber and purple hues. He was racing against time to reach the ranger station before complete darkness fell. A cardinal rule in the African wilderness that no experienced traveler would dare break. Marcus wasn't just any tourist. For 15 years, he had documented wildlife across 6 continents, capturing images that graced the covers of National Geographic and won him international acclaim. He understood the language of the wild, the unspoken rules that govern survival in these untamed lands. He knew that compassion, while noble, could be deadly when misplaced. Yet on this particular evening, all his experience, all his hard-earned wisdom would be put to the ultimate test. The cub appeared suddenly in his headlights, a small, pitiful creature barely 3 months old, dragging its hind leg across the road. Its tiny body was covered in dust, ribs visible through matted fur. The sight was heartbreaking, unprecedented in its raw vulnerability. Every instinct screamed at Marcus to keep driving. Lion cubs don't simply appear alone. Where there's a cub, there's a pride, and interfering with nature's course could mean death. But something in the cub's eyes, those amber pools of desperate pleading, made Marcus's foot hover over the brake pedal. The cub wasn't just injured, it was dying. Its labored breathing created small clouds of dust with each exhale. A deep gash ran along its hindquarters, likely from a hyena attack or a territorial dispute. The wound was infected, festering in the African heat. Marcus knew the statistics. 60% of lion cubs don't survive their first year. Nature is cruel, indifferent to individual suffering. This was the law of the savanna, written in blood and survival. Any wrong move could cost him his life. The sun had now completely disappeared below the horizon, and darkness was descending like a suffocating blanket. His hands trembled as he reached for his medical kit, a decision that went against every survival protocol he'd ever learned. The moment his boots touched the ground, the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. The African night brought with it a symphony of danger, distant hyena calls, the rustle of unseen predators, the whisper of death on the wind. The cub watched him approach with ancient eyes that seemed far too wise for such a young creature. It didn't run. It couldn't run. Instead, it made a sound that shattered Marcus's professional detachment. A soft, broken whimper that sounded almost human in its desperation. As Marcus knelt beside the injured animal, his headlamp illuminating the severity of the wounds, he heard it. A low, rumbling growl that seemed to come from the very earth itself. His blood turned to ice. Slowly, with the careful precision of someone defusing a bomb, he lifted his head, yellow eyes, dozens of them, glowing in the darkness like malevolent stars. The pride had found him. 7 adult lionesses and 2 massive males emerged from the shadows, their muscular bodies moving with liquid grace. The largest male, a magnificent beast with a mane as black as midnight, stood less than 20 feet away. His scarred face told stories of countless battles, of dominance hard-won and fiercely maintained. This was his territory, his family, and Marcus was an intruder. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs with such force, he was certain the lions could hear it. This was how he would die. Not from old age in some comfortable bed, but torn apart in the African wilderness. Another cautionary tale for foolish humans who forgot their place in nature's hierarchy. The black-maned lion took a step forward, then another. His massive paws made no sound on the dusty ground. Time seemed to slow, each second stretching into eternity. Marcus could smell the predator's wild scent, could see the individual whiskers twitching as the lion assessed him. But then, something extraordinary happened. Something that would later be described by wildlife experts as unprecedented. and scientifically impossible. The injured cub, using what little strength remained in its broken body, crawled between Marcus and the approaching pride. It made a series of soft vocalizations, not the fearful mewing of a wounded infant, but something more complex, more deliberate. The giant male stopped, his enormous head tilted slightly, those predatory eyes shifting from Marcus to the cub, then back again. The cub continued its desperate communication, and incredibly, unbelievably, the black-maned lion's posture began to change. The aggressive stance softened. The raised tail lowered. The bared teeth disappeared behind closed lips. What happened next defied every documented behavior pattern of African lions. The massive male approached, not with predatory intent, but with what could only be described as careful curiosity. He lowered his great head and gently, with a tenderness that seemed impossible for such a powerful predator, sniffed the medical supplies in Marcus's trembling hands. The silence that followed was profound, sacred. Marcus understood with crystalline clarity that his life hung in the balance of whatever decision this apex predator was making. The lion's breath was hot against his skin, each exhale a reminder of the power contained within those massive jaws. Then, in a gesture that would haunt Marcus for the rest of his life, the black-maned lion stepped back. He looked directly into Marcus's eyes, not with the cold assessment of predator evaluating prey, but with something far more complex. There was intelligence there, understanding, and perhaps most remarkably, trust. The lion turned to his pride and made a low, rumbling sound. One by one, the other lions sat down, forming a perfect circle around Marcus and the injured cub. They weren't hunting. They were watching. They were allowing. With hands that shook from adrenaline and awe, Marcus began treating the cub's wounds. He cleaned the infected gash with antiseptic, applied antibiotic cream, and wrapped the leg with practiced efficiency. Throughout the entire process, the pride remained motionless, silent guardians in the darkness. The only sounds were the cub's occasional whimpers and the distant calls of the African night. The most remarkable moment came when Marcus needed to give the cub an injection of antibiotics. As he prepared the syringe, the cub's mother, identifiable by her protective positioning, moved closer. Marcus froze, certain this was the moment everything would go wrong. But instead of attacking, she did something that defied every law of nature. She gently placed her massive paw on the cub's body, holding it still, helping Marcus complete the injection. When the treatment was finished, when the last bandage was secured, the transformation in the pride's behavior was complete. The black-maned lion approached once more. This time, Marcus didn't feel fear. The lion lowered his magnificent head in what could only be interpreted as a bow. A gesture of gratitude so profound, so unmistakably deliberate, that it transcended the boundaries between species. One by one, each member of the pride performed the same ritual. 7 lionesses, 2 males, all bowing their heads to the human who had saved their youngest member. It was a moment of such profound significance that Marcus forgot to breathe, forgot his camera, forgot everything except the weight of this extraordinary honor. The mother lion was the last to approach. She moved with devastating grace, her powerful muscles rippling beneath her tawny coat. She stopped inches from Marcus's face, close enough that he could see his own reflection in her amber eyes. For one heart-stopping moment, she simply looked at him. Then, with infinite gentleness, she touched her nose to his hand, a gesture of trust so complete, so absolute that it redefined everything Marcus thought he knew about the natural world. As if responding to some unspoken signal, the pride began to move. The mother carefully picked up her cub, now bandaged and medicated, in her powerful jaws. The black-maned lion gave Marcus one final look, a gaze that seemed to carry the wisdom of ages, the understanding of one father to another, one protector recognizing another. They disappeared into the darkness as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving Marcus alone on the dusty road with only his headlamp piercing the African night. His hands still trembled, but now from something other than fear. He had experienced something sacred, something that challenged the very foundation of how we understand the relationship between humans and nature. The cub survived. Marcus would learn this weeks later when he returned with a research team and camera equipment. They found the pride, and there, playing with its siblings, was the cub, recognizable by the healing scars and a slight limp that would likely remain for life. When the cub saw Marcus, it did something that made even the seasoned researchers gasp. It ran to him, rubbed against his legs like a domestic cat, then returned to its mother, who watched with what could only be described as approval. The footage Marcus eventually captured of this reunion would go viral, viewed over 100 million times and sparking global conversations about consciousness, empathy, and the emotional lives of animals. Scientists would debate, skeptics would doubt, but those who were there, who witnessed the profound intelligence and gratitude in those amber eyes, knew the truth. In that moment on a dark African road, the boundaries between human and animal, between predator and protector, had dissolved. What remained was something far more fundamental, the recognition that compassion transcends species, that kindness is a universal language understood by all living beings, and that sometimes, just sometimes, the courage to help another creature in need can reveal the hidden nobility that exists in all of nature's children. The story would be told and retold around campfires and in lecture halls, each telling adding another layer to the legend. But for Marcus, the truth was simpler and more profound than any embellishment could make it. On that night, he hadn't just saved a lion cub. He had been invited into an ancient covenant, a sacred trust between species that proved that even in nature's harshest arena, even among its most fearsome predators, love and gratitude are forces more powerful than fear, more enduring than the divide between fang and flesh. Some would call it a miracle, others would call it impossible. But for those who understand that the natural world operates on frequencies of connection far deeper than our science can measure, it was simply proof of what indigenous peoples have always known: we are all related, all connected, all part of the same magnificent, mysterious tapestry of life. And sometimes, in moments of pure compassion and desperate need, that truth reveals itself in ways that can forever change not just one life, but our entire understanding of what it means to share this planet with creatures whose capacity for emotion, gratitude, and nobility equals, and perhaps even exceeds, our own.